where to start when you are new to resistance training or weight training. With the amount of information out there, with all the contradicting information, it is very easy to be very confused and to find it very, very complicated when it comes to knowing what to do when you go to the gym or when you start weight training, resistance training, even if it's at home. You'll have different people telling you X amount of reps to do. You'll have different people telling you X amount of sets to do, what splits to do, what exercises are best, if you should be doing drop sets and all that jazz. Often people get caught up so much in the little details that they miss the very basics of what they should be focusing on when they start training. And I'm going to walk you through now my tips for when you're starting out with weight training, resistance training, to help you get the most of it and set those foundations to then help you progress further on as time goes on. Okay, so number one, very straightforward. Form and execution is key. So the form and execution of the movements that you pick, which we're going to come on to in a minute, is key. And it is much more important than anything else. It's more important than the weight you're lifting. It's more important than how hard you're training. Form and execution is key. We have to make sure that our form and execution is nailed before we focus on anything else. One, for just the quality of the training, how much we're going to get out of each exercise, each set, each rep. And two, just for safety. The last thing we want to do is injure ourselves. Okay, if we injure ourselves, we're out of the game for longer, we can't train. So form and execution is key. My tip for that is find someone or something where you can watch videos of how to perform exercises well. Okay, then you can learn and then you can implement. Lucky for you, I have videos on this channel of how to perform certain exercises, so you can go and grab them. Plus, if you work with me or if you're in my Discord or whatnot, I also have a lot more videos of doing those exact things. So there's places where you can find those sort of videos, but you have to go and find out and learn how to perform exercises, whichever ones you choose, well. Number two, be realistic with your training frequency. Be realistic with how many times you can train a week. Now, the reason I say this is because consistency is key. Consistency is key, whatever you're doing, okay? So you have to make sure that week to week, you can be hitting the amount of sessions that you're setting yourself. Because once we've gone through this, if you've given yourself an unrealistic frequency of training, everything else, not everything else, but a lot of the other things that we're going to go through are then going to be hindered. So you need to make sure, however many times you're telling yourself you can train a week, it is realistic and you can do week to week. Number three, the split. Now, this isn't going to be complicated, okay? And a lot of people will make it complicated, and a lot of people will tell you certain splits are best. It's a load of rubbish. The best split is going to be what fits you and what fits your frequency of training that you've picked, okay? So, you've got your frequency of training that you've picked, so let's say you can train 4 times a week. You then, within your training split, so what days you're going to train certain muscles and whatnot, you want to make sure that you can train each muscle group 2 to maybe 3 times a week. So if you're doing 4 sessions a week, that might look like an upper-lower split. So on one day you do upper body, on the second day you do lower body, on the third day you do upper body, and on the fourth day you do lower body. And what that's going to allow you to do is then hit each body part, muscle group, 2 to potentially how you plan each individual session 3 times a week. Because upper body sessions you can be hitting chest, back, shoulders, and arms. Lower body sessions you can obviously be hitting quads, hamstrings, glutes, calves. But your split is going to come down to the frequency of training you've set yourself, and then making sure you can train each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. Number 4, when it comes to exercise selection, okay? Again, hopefully at this point, if we've gone enough, tip number 1 where I told you to find somewhere where you can find exercises and learn how to do them. What you then want to do is just simply pick like 3 to 5 movements for each muscle group. Okay, so you pick 3 to 5 movements for chest, you pick 3 to 5 movements for back, 3 to 5 movements for quads and whatnot. And then you just simply learn those movements, get good at executing them, progress them over time. And then when away from this video, when we're talking weeks, months down the line, when you want to rotate things, you can then bring in new movements. okay? But the last thing I would do is just have tens of exercises for each muscle group that you have to learn and you have to manage. Just keep it simple. Pick 3 to 5, learn them, execute them well. Now, the only thing I would say with this, which might be a little bit complicated, is that ideally you want to pick movements within that 3 to 5 that are good for challenging the lengthened phase of an exercise of the muscle, the mid phase, and the shortened phase. Okay, now this gets a little bit complicated, but again, if you're finding a decent place to gather information on certain exercises, how to execute them, they'll probably give you information on if they're challenging the length and mid or short range well. Okay, so that's something you can look into. And we're not going to go into it a lot in this video. Again, I do have videos on this YouTube channel going through that, so go and have a look at them. But if you wanted to get a little bit more out of your exercise selection at this initial phase, then picking movements that are good for length and mid and short challenge of the muscle within the 3 to 5 exercises would be key. Number 5, when it comes to sets, keep this dead simple. Just make sure that you're training each muscle group, let's say 8 to 10 sets for each muscle group, okay, across the week, not per session, across the week, right? So again, if you're doing upper, lower, okay, that means in each of those sessions, you might be doing 4 sets per muscle group, right? 4 for chest, 4 for back. You're doing that twice a week, that's going to be 8 across the week. Take a small number like 8 to 10 sets per muscle group per week, and then go from there, okay? Especially when you're starting out, you want to start with the minimum effective. So the least you can do, but while still making progress. Start there, then you can build sets on over time. Don't worry about doing so much at the beginning. Number 6, rep ranges. Keep this dead simple again. Keep them varied. There's no special rep range, okay? So keep them varied. That might look like 6 to 8 on one exercise. It might look like 10 to 12 on another exercise. That might look like 15 to 20 on another exercise. If it was me, any reps from 5 to 30, any rep ranges within there are probably good. So keep them varied. And then lastly, number 7, learn to train hard. Learn to train at high intensity, okay? Again, right now, especially if you're looking at the tip from sets, we'll keep involved relatively low. We're doing that minimum effective. And that's because we want to nail everything first before we look at adding things onto it. And one of those things we want to nail is how hard we're training, okay? Simply put, a lot of people don't train hard enough. So we want to make sure right now, once we've got form and execution nailed, once we've picked those exercises, we're going to learn to train hard. The best way to think about this is to use the RPE scale, which is basically rate of perceived exertion. So how hard you find the exercise. Okay, think of the scale of 1 to 10. 1 being very, very easy, 10 being you can't do any more. You couldn't do a single other rep. You want to learn to train so at the end of each set, you feel like you're at 8, maybe 9 out of 10. So you feel like you've only got 1, maybe 2 reps left in the tank at the end of each set, okay? That's where you want to learn to train. And that might take a few weeks, even maybe months, to get to the point where you're training at that intensity, but that's what you want to learn to do. However, last little point on that, make sure when you are training at that level of intensity, your form and execution doesn't suffer. Again, we have to be safe, we have to be lifting in a controlled way, so make sure that even when you're training at that level of intensity, your form and execution is on point. So there you have it. Tips for training when you're new to weight training, resistance training, being at the gym, whatever it might be. Hopefully you found those helpful. If you do have any questions on them, obviously throw them down below. And if you want more help on this, by all means get in touch with me and I can help. If you did find it helpful, please drop a like and please do subscribe so you can keep up to date with the rest of these videos. Take care.